The US President Joe Biden has warned Israel not to repeat the mistakes made by America in the wake of 9/11.
For a nation the size of Israel, it was like 15 9/11s. The scale may be different, but I'm sure those horrors have tapped into some kind of primal feeling in Israel, just like it did and felt in the United States. Shock, pain, rage, an all-consuming rage. I understand, and many Americans understand. You can't look at what has happened here and not scream out for justice. But I caution this: while you feel that rage, don't be consumed by it. After 9/11, we were enraged in the United States. While we sought justice and got justice, we also made mistakes.
Well, in a whirlwind visit to Tel Aviv, Biden expressed his unwavering solidarity and support for Israel after being welcomed by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In an emotional moment, the president also met with emergency services along with the families of murdered and kidnapped Israelis. President Biden also claimed yesterday's deadly hospital explosion in Gaza appeared to have been caused, quote, by the other team, not Israel. Hamas blamed Israeli airstrikes, while Tel Aviv claimed the blast was caused by a misfired Palestinian militant rocket. Well, before the president boarded Air Force One, Israel announced it would allow humanitarian aid to enter the Gaza Strip through Egypt as long as that aid didn't end up in Hamas' hands. Just on that final point, I mean, I think we would all celebrate the fact that the thought that any humanitarian aid could get through. How you can guarantee that that aid is not going to end up in Hamas' hands, I'm not quite sure. And of course, that is the original reason why the Israelis were refusing to let aid get through, because they said it will just end up reinforcing the fight that Hamas is putting up, because it'll give them water and fuel and electricity and all the rest of it. So I'm glad, but I'm not quite sure how they can guarantee that. On Biden in general, I'm very pleased that he's there. You know, organising a presidential visit is no mean feat, let alone to a war zone, although he has been to Ukraine. And he does have empathy, which comes over when he's talking.
I don't think anything much comes over when he's talking, apart from the fact that he's incapable of, barely capable of going anywhere without a script. And once he cast his eye up
with Israel.
I mean, honestly, Daisy, I actually think he's done. It's been a negative, not a positive.
What I was just going to go on to say is that saying the other team did it, as far as the hospital attack, I think that's very sloppy and very poorly worded.
I'm also curious as to what exactly he means by America having made mistakes after 9/11.
He means Republicans made mistakes.
What is he referring to? Is he saying that actually there shouldn't have been the
No, he's referring to what happened after the military. He's saying that there wasn't a plan for what would happen after.
What, in 20 years afterwards, kind of thing?
Yeah. I think it reinforced what he was trying to say, wasn't it, about having a considered response to what has happened. But I agree with you. I was on air at the time. I thought it was vague and wandering, really unpresidential. Yeah, pretty embarrassing. Also, the other team did it.
Yeah, that was terrible.
I mean, it's not a sports game, is it? This is war.
Look,
it's war.
No. How much use is his visit doing? Of course, you know, the President of the United States, Israel's old ally, has to make this visit, but how much good has it done? I would say not very much, probably more bad than good. You know, standing there, you know, it does look like, to use his awful phrase, the other team did it. It does look like they did it. However, it might have been diplomatic not to say that. That enraged the Arab community. Hence, we see, you know, all of them kicking off, Iran threatening to attack. It's all going wrong
and
in
refusing
Lebanon.
to meet Biden.
And then, Jordan,
and then
Egypt,
they all cancelled their meetings with him. So I'm afraid it's old Joe Biden again. And as I said earlier, in that press conference this morning, America stands.
Oh, it's just awful.
You know, I mean, this is an old guy. He hasn't got his faculties, and the fate of the world is in this old geezer's hand. Very worrying.
I mean, I would like to think the fate of the world is not in his hands. I don't think it was the best time for him to go. I don't think his comments on the other team did it were warranted were necessary. I mean, it's already a tinderbox in that region, and there were already protests after the bombing of that hospital. And he definitely made things worse with the other team did it comment, and also the cancellation of meetings. What actually is the point?
Okay,
but
I'm sorry, it was
there?
also sloppy journalism, wasn't it? Because, of course, fingers were pointed at Israel initially. Of course, those we think were untrue at that point. But also, if you watch that address, he started wandering off at the end, telling anecdotes, and sort of had to rein himself back.
But I think
on the back of it, I do think there was a couple of things he said. Israel will have what it needs, and the US will give unprecedented support. He also talked about unity, but also what they need to do desperately is to calm this down and bring the Arab world back in and make sure Israel does have a very carefully considered plan.
The high point this morning was when he said, in the middle of this very important press conference, the morning one when he first arrived, he said, yeah, it's terrible what's happened to the people of Israel. I got a story about it, but it's too long. I'll tell you. I'll tell you later.
I mean, how is that?
What on earth is that?
It doesn't provide any reassurance. I mean, if his presence is supposed to be some kind of reassurance that America is, you know, full square behind the forces of good versus evil. I mean, this is a guy that doesn't look like he's got a clue which side.
But do we think Rishi Sunak will do any better? I mean, if we're to believe
yes,
the various
I think he probably would. At least he's articulate.
Going.
At least he doesn't have to follow a script.
The thing is, when it comes to when we talk about the bombing of this particular hospital, what we are seeing play out in front of us is also a war of information.
Absolutely.
There is so much information coming in.
Misinformation.
And misinformation as well. Exactly. You're absolutely right, Kevin. This is a war of information. I mean, there's so many things circulated online from that are attributed to 2017, 2022 that are said to have happened yesterday and the day after. And trying to verify what is actually happening on the ground is terribly, terribly difficult. And we're seeing that play out in front of our very eyes as well.
Yeah.